So we can all agree that climate change is a big problem that needs to be addressed on a global scale. We are here today in Amsterdam with Pierre Tardieu, which is the Chief Policy Officer at Wind Europe. Hello, Pierre.
Hi, hello. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for dedicating this time with us at Talks with Innovators magazine. It's really an honor.
You're very welcome.
And what can you tell us more about the resource platform? What is it all about?
So the resource platform is really a group of organizations that have come together to basically advance renewable energy corporate sourcing. So there has for a little while been a number of companies that have been in the forefront, have been basically driving the agenda, starting to procure renewable energy. And there have been many efforts to try and make this as easy as possible and to advance this agenda. And so basically what the resource platform is doing is bringing these organizations together to rationalize that work. So there's ourselves, Wind Europe, which is the European Wind Energy Association. So we represent 450 members across the value chain. Our partners from Solar Power Europe, the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and RE100, which is this campaign of companies committing to moving towards 100% renewables. Now, we work, it's not just us, of course, we work in close cooperation with our members that are most active in this space. So on the generation side, it's companies like RES, Iberdrola, Enel, Engie. On the buyer side, it's companies, as you said, like Microsoft, like Google, and many more that are part of the steering committee and really doing this. So basically, the platform aims at doing really three things. It's raising awareness of the development of corporate renewable PPAs, raising the awareness of the appetite of corporates to really buy this renewable energy and to move the energy transition. The second thing is to really pair up the buyers and sellers, to be very operational and do this matchmaking. And the third thing is really to be, again, very operational and make sure that we try and simplify this process for as many companies as possible. So the aggregation, the simplification of this process.
Standardization, basically.
Yeah, well, I mean, a certain degree of standardization. There's never going to be a single, PPA template. The rules are different in different countries, etc., and different sectors will have, and different companies will have different needs. But at least simplify the first steps to get the ball rolling. One of the things that we're trying to do with this event, and one of the mantras of this event, is okay, we've got 100 or so companies that are leading this. But we'd like to see 100,000 companies ultimately, procuring green electricity and more broadly energy. And so we view our role as getting the word out and then making it happen.
And how come that in countries like the United States, these processes with the PPAs seems to be so much easier and so much direct,
yes,
supported as well?
Yes. So the history is a little bit different, but what's true, so the US has been, a leader on this front, but Europe is catching up. We had 2 gigawatts this year of corporate renewable PPAs, mostly wind, some a little bit of solar, and what we see is that as we move towards support mechanisms that are more market-oriented, PPAs become a much more important part of that equation because they're one of your instruments, one of your toolbox, instruments in the toolbox to basically stabilize part of your revenue. So going forward, corporate renewable PPAs will have a growing role in basically driving the energy transition.
Yeah, and talking about the energy transition, why are PPAs, corporate PPAs, so important from an environmental point of view?
I think they're very important because they're a signal. A lot of the electricity demand is coming from corporates. If you tally up the commitments of RE100 companies that are headquartered in Europe, it's about the electricity demand of a country like Poland. Yes. So it's a huge power demand, and if we shift that to renewables, that really helps to drive along the transition. And also it's great that companies are capitalizing on their corporate responsibility and their image, and at the same time making a decision that makes business sense for them to move this along. I think it's important to understand that corporate renewable PPAs, perhaps at the beginning, were motivated by corporate social responsibility concerns, but now more and more, and we're seeing more companies that are not necessarily household names, but that are going into this because it helps them to lock in an energy supply at a fixed price for a long time, and so that makes a huge economic sense when there's a lot of uncertainty on future energy prices, and so that has become now the main driver for corporate renewable PPAs.
And coming back to Europe, we saw during the presentation yesterday that most of the clients are based in Scandinavian countries.
Yes.
How come there is this diversification between the rest of Europe and the Scandinavian countries? Why is concentrated there?
Yeah. A lot of it has to do with history. PPAs have, long been part of the landscape in the Nordic countries. You see them also happening in the UK. But it's true that if we want to see them in countries like France, Germany, some of the rules are going to have to change. For example, on the tracking of green power. So we're working on that. But it's already very encouraging to see that new countries are coming to this space. We've seen the first corporate renewable PPA in Poland, for example, over the summer with the automotive sector. We're starting to see them in Spain with BBVA, the bank there, and we're confident that it's going to continue to spread.
Awesome, thank you. Last question. What are your key takeaways for this great edition of Resource 2018?
I think one of the key takeaways is that basically the political will and the operational side are coming together. So on the one hand, we had this resource declaration, on the eve of COP24 in Katowice, basically saying, okay, the corporates are aware of their responsibility in driving the fight against climate change, driving the energy transition, and there are now 100 organizations that have signed this. What those companies are asking is to make sure that all the barriers that are existing right now to corporate renewable PPAs are removed. Yeah, so that's one thing. And then on the operational side, we can see that there's a lot of energy, a lot of dynamism, a lot of B2B meetings, a lot of people coming up with very operational solutions to deal with the challenges that we're meeting today. So that would be my key takeaway. This event has grown significantly from last year. We've got 50% more participants, more B2B meetings, more energy, more side discussions, etc. And so that's, I think, a really good indication of where this thing is going.
Yeah, numbers really seem to have doubled since last year.
Exactly,
so that's really a positive message for Europe and in the world at large.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Pierre.
You're very welcome.
For your time.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.